Okay, students, here we are back again, taking a look at the tour notes for the Expo Center. I want you to know who the owner of the Expo Center is, and you should have that as the City of Springfield is the owner of the Expo Center. It's managed by whom? Who's it Who's it managed by? How many full-time staff does the actual Expo Center have designated to it? And then also, let's talk about seating capacity. There's a certain number for theater seating that they have. It's 4,000 seats. That's probably the maximum theater style seating. 1,500 in classroom style, and so therefore, what is classroom style? And then one time they did a banquet for the governor. It was a governor's banquet, one time and only one time. And I want you to know why they don't have other. What is the other reason why they don't have many banquets there in the Exposition Center? And what was the seating capacity for that banquet? What type of facility is it? Is it a promoter, a producer, a rental? What kind of a facility is it? And then what are the rental rates? You got 3 different compartments or 3 different parts to that Expo Center, or at least 3 different parts on that in the one floor. You got A, B, and C. What is the rental rate per section? A, B, and C. And then what are the additional charges that they will charge you for? In addition to that amount, there's a service charge, there's a sales tax charge, there's a CID. What does CID stand for? What are the additional charges? And those are some of them, okay? I think might even be all of them if I'm reading my notes quickly enough here. So know if you were a promoter wanting to use that facility for something, a consumer show, if I were to ask you how much would it cost you, you would want, and I give you certain numbers, you want to calculate that cost to you that you'll be charged. So keep that in mind. Okay, moving on. What is a picnic license? We've talked about that before, but what is a picnic license? What are the type of events that they've had there at the Exposition Center? Who is the ticketing? Who does the ticketing for that particular facility? And then who does the food and beverage and concessions for that facility? What's the number one expense for the facility, and what is the number one revenue stream for that facility? And some key terms that I want you to be aware of. What is the? Sorry about that. There's some people yelling out on the over here, so on the lake. So sorry about that. The question is, there's this term that's used that describes, or it's a certain clause that will be in a contract that will actually state specifically what. It's a clause that protects the University Plaza, if you will, from having a contract and a contractor or someone that's renting the facility and or the hotel, and if you don't sell a certain number of hotel rooms, then you are obligated to a certain number of hotel room cost. So just be aware of that, and there's a clause in the contract. And of course, I know this is not just the expo, but remember this expo is managed by a hotel, University Plaza, so be aware of that. What is a BEO? It's something common for hotels, resorts, and convention centers. What is a BEO? BEO. Something that you're going to rent if you're going to do a trade show. It's called pipe and what? In order to remove the reverberation and echoing in that large facility at the Expo Center, there is what is the material that has been hung on the walls of that particular facility. Know what that is. And then they also talked about a certain type of seating. If I gave you a description of the seating, would you be able to tell me the name of that seating, how they set it up for large conference type of events? It's called something, and we mentioned that in the tour. Okay, it starts with a C. Okay, and then I think finally here. Two things. One of the things I want you to know is what is the booking policy that has been instituted there at the Expo Center. We talked about this, we discussed it, and we visited it before. And then finally, what is one of the primary unique selling points of this particular facility? It's kind of a trivial thing, but something that's very important, and you were introduced to it while we were doing the tour. Okay, I think that's about all that I have on this particular facility. All right, I think that's it. I'm going to pause. All right, back in action here. I am now looking at the textbook, and there's some questions that I'm going to draw from the textbook again that were not on your quiz review sheet. So again, I'm not covering in this review. I'm not covering what I've already provided for you as quiz review questions. This is in addition to that. Every now and then I might slip up and I might repeat a quiz review question, but for the most part, this should be new material I'm asking you to be prepared for. Okay. If you take a look in chapter 5, okay, I'm just glancing through some of the pages here, and there is nothing new from the following pages. I'm taking a look at those. Okay. All right. Now I'm taking a look at page 101, and on this I see something about what has a bearing on capacity for an event, and they provide for you a number of different setup arrangements as that are termed in the chapter. Know what those are. Okay. On page 103, I want to know what is meant by tickets as a limited contract and revocable license. Okay. Okay, I'm looking at, to see if there's anything new here that I want to highlight that we haven't already talked about. Oh, yes, there is. On page 105, there's some discussion about the revocable license, and it talks about this unwritten industry standard as it relates to how much time the headliner must play for. It's kind of an unwritten standard. What is that? Another thing that I want you to be aware of is in the event of cancellation or postponement of an event, a promoter and facility should have at least two kinds of announcements. What are those two kind of announcements? And also, when it comes down to debates between promoters and facilities and ticket holders, the courts typically side with whom? Okay. What is one of the ways you can avoid complimentary tickets being returned for a refund? Okay, that's on approximately page 107. Okay. Moving along here, again, this is from your quiz, but I know it want you to know what an RFQ is and also what an RFP is and the difference between those. And let me just remind you, if I didn't tell all of you at the beginning, if you go to page 109 and you read the sentence in the middle of the page, it starts this way: the RFQ process generally will not provide a list of resources. Strike the word not. That is a typo there. You should strike the word not. It should read, the RFQ process generally will provide a list of resources the company will provide. So everybody should correct that in their books as a favor to you and then to those that buy your book from you one of these days, maybe. Okay? All right, moving on, I'm looking at the area, page 111, and I want to know what the value of a ticket is after the event has started, and so be aware of that. Okay, this is a pretty important part here. I'm under managing the ticket process, and part A says determine the event's potential to sell tickets, and there in that paragraph you're going to find several items that you should consider when trying to determine the potential to sell tickets. There's at least 4 that I'm reading. I want you to be able to be aware of those 4. Okay? What is ticket price sensitivity or market threshold? What is that? And what is scaling the house on page 113? And it continues on page 115, scaling the house, but it's also a quiz review question. what is a ticket manifest and what's the value of that ticket manifest?